Welcome back to the Niner Nation podcast. I'm your host, Evan Nazareth, and I'm joined by Nicole Lane, who's the marketing lead for the Formula Society of Automotive Engineers, also known as FSAE. So glad to have you. So this episode will be focusing on how the team engineers speed, their performance in competitions, and how you can further be involved in watching and contributing to this thrilling sport. So Nicole, what exactly got you into racing?
So I've always been interested in cars. My dad has a 1974 TR6 British sports car. So I grew up with him working on that in the garage, helping him out with that. And I think in middle school, I kind of strayed away from it because of societal pressures telling me that I didn't belong or it wasn't something that girls could do. But then in high school, I had a teacher who introduced me to racing. He introduced me to Formula One. He introduced me to grassroots motorsports such as autocross and SCCA. And it came at a point when I was figuring out what I wanted to do in university. Yeah. And I really saw how F1 relied on the engineering and the science, but it also relied extremely heavily on business. You can build the best race car on paper, but if you don't have the money to make it, you're not going to go racing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you want to expand a bit more on like what F1 is, NASCAR, and kind of the difference between just the racing branches in general and how this industry actually works?
Yeah, so there are a couple different levels. First, I mentioned the grassroots level. That's things like autocross. There are small dirt tracks around the United States, small asphalt tracks, and there's karting. So there's so many ways to just start getting involved and more local community level. And then you can go up a notch, and that's things like ARCA, which is also stock car racing. There are karting championships that you can do. And then going up from there, there's the Xfinity Series in NASCAR. There's the Truck Series. There's the Silver Crown Championship for USAC. That's more on the IndyCar side. There are higher levels of karting championships. And then in the top echelons of motorsport, there's IndyCar, as well as the NTT. There's the NTT IndyCar Series and the Indy NXT Series. There's F1, F2, F3. There's the NASCAR Cup Series. And so really, it's an entire world. And there's things that I'm not mentioning, such as rally. It's huge. Yeah. It's highly geographical. So if you notice, NASCAR is mainly in Charlotte, North Carolina, as well as Florida, like Daytona. Then IndyCar is very popular in Indianapolis. And F1 is highly concentrated in Europe. So it depends on where you're from. It depends on just the culture around you, what you get into. But it's a huge, huge world, huge community. And there's really something for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that heavily. There's a whole bunch of different types, but we're really fortunate to be right next to the Charlotte Motor Speedway ourselves and have our team be really competitive when it comes to FSAE. Do you want to expand a bit more about what exactly that group does?
Yeah. So the Society of Automotive Engineers is a professional organization for engineers in the automotive and racing industry. Formula SAE specifically is where students come together to design, build, and race Formula-style cars. These cars could be electric or internal combustion. So at UNC Charlotte, we have both an internal combustion team and an EV team. I'm the marketing and outreach lead for the Formula SAE EV team, which is 49ers Racing EV. And then there's the internal combustion side, which is just 49ers Racing.
Yeah, so you guys work up in the Colwicki lab. Do you want to explain a bit more about like what that is and what you guys do there and how often you're open and how people can get involved in that sense?
Yeah, so just starting, Alan Colwicki was the first college graduate to win the Winston Cup Series championship. And so his life was, it highly revolved around both education and motorsports. He had a degree in mechanical engineering. And so after his passing, the Alan Colwicki Foundation was created, and they donated the Alan Colwicki Motorsports Laboratory. So that is a building that we work out of. It's very, very important to us. It allows us to do so much. And so really we owe the Alan Colwicki Foundation so much, and we hope to continue and honor his legacy through our work. So ways that people can get involved, I highly recommend getting involved as a freshman. First, just coming to our general meeting, seeing what it's about, and seeing where you can fit in. I really love my business team because I have people from all different majors. I have earth science majors. I have an anthropology major. I also have marketing majors. I have a civil engineer, all on my team, and they have a passion for racing. And I'm able to teach them business skills that they can then apply through their work with the team.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something that I've wanted to hit on as well, which is that it is more than just engineers. Like, while it is called the Society of Automotive Engineers, you guys have so many different majors. You have people even undecided. Business is a key area because there are so many parts to every industry. So you need all of those people to be working together to highlight the amazing things you have about the car, develop it, and work on it. So what are some, like, you guys also have a freshman project, right, for EV where they can get involved and work on it that way?
Yeah. So the whole philosophy behind FSAE is if you've never turned a wrench, if you've never made an engineering drawing, if you have no experience with CAD, if you've never even made a TikTok, it's okay. There's a space for you on this team, and there are people who can teach you. So I remember when I was a freshman, I was in the shop one night very late, and one of our alumni for 49ers Racing Internal Combustion, Wesley Goodwin, our former team captain, was doing some research on tires. And so I asked him, Wesley, what are you doing? Can you explain this to me? And so he sat for about 20 minutes and we just talked about tires. We talked about testing tires, how we determine what tires we want to use, tire heat cycles. And that's really the environment that encapsulates Formula SAE. So with Freshman Project, it's more of an organized approach to teaching freshmen how to use basic shop tools, introduction to designing something, and kind of this year we're mainly reverse engineering our previous accumulator cart. Basically, we have to have a cart to put the accumulator on because it's dangerous. And yeah, it's a really good way for them to get their just initial hands-on skills before we start manufacturing the car. So when we actually start manufacturing the car second semester, they're able to help and participate.
Yeah, so a lot of what FSAE is doing is you guys are getting your team members initially over the course of the year, you're developing them, and then you elect leads for next year to work on the car, right? So as in you have a year-long design process where your leaders are elected the previous year, and then they work on the car over the course of the year, and you're preparing for the competition. So the competition I find really interesting because you guys have, I think, 120 international teams, I think. Something along those lines? Yeah, 120 international teams that work together to participate in a bunch of different dynamic and static events. So overall, what do you want to just talk a bit more about the actual design process of the car and how you guys compete?
Yeah, so both IC and EV have an 18-month design cycle. This means that we're starting to think about next year's car before we've gone to competition. Yeah. So just I think it's important to note that our team is broken up into sub-teams. And so it's not just the leads who are designing the car and helping manufacture it and going to competition. It's also members of each sub-team. So it's a giant communal effort and passion project. So going back to the design cycle, we take what we learned from our previous competition and immediately start applying it. Then as far as timeline goes, we hope to be manufacturing at the end of first semester to beginning of second semester. Then we test, and then IC has their competition in June, and we have IC has their competition in May, and we have our competition in June, EV. So it's very difficult, mainly because some of those key deadlines come at the same time as finals. They come at the same time as midterms. And so it is a extremely difficult project to do. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of determination. And that's something that I love most about this group is that it's a group of like-minded people who are just as competitive as me, who are just as determined as me. And we all have this one goal specifically for the EV team. We're a very young team. We're only about 3 years old. And our main successes so far have been in that beginning development phase. It's highly, highly unlikely, unless you're Braun GP, those who know, to come out your first year and build a championship winning car. Ron GP did that. So we're not them. So we've had this design phase where we're really trying to get up off the ground. And so our third year, we have high hopes for this year. We're really coming out swinging. And I think that's about it on that. We're just constantly learning and growing. I think one of the important things to note is the Bat Cave, the Battery Research Center. That's one of the premier institutions for electric vehicle and battery research. And we frequently work with them, consult with them on our design, as well as battery choice, things that we should be considering where students learning at the same time. So the major advantage with FSAE is that students are able to get the hands-on skills they need to become professionals semesters before they're taught it in the classroom, if they're ever even taught it in the classroom.
Yeah. And you guys still do great in competition.
Thank you.
IC got second place overall this year, right?
Yeah.
And they got to celebrate that. But I do feel for you when you're saying that this is a tough process because you're working for 18 months. But one of the things that I really like about engineering and in general is while you do have all this work, there is a huge payoff at the end.
Yes.
Like you work for so long and so hard, put in a lot of hours, but then you get to like celebrate that success. So how'd you feel last year after the team won?
So I actually moved away from the internal combustion side of things in about January. And that was because I was presented with a great opportunity on the EV side of things to build a brand from the ground up. Our business team had really struggled with establishing itself. And I saw it as really a blank slate. We didn't have a lot of just content out on social media. So there was a blank canvas with that. Our branding was quite shaky. We had a logo and we were using the school colors and that was kind of it. Our website wasn't great. And so I wanted to take that opportunity to use that as a learning experience for myself and to be able to lead a team. Whereas IC, they have a 35-year history. They're extremely well established and so is their business team. So I wasn't there to celebrate that second place win because I wasn't on that team. But they had an incredible time. There was this amazing video of them in their hotel room in Michigan where it's announced that they got second and everyone just goes wild. And so I'm so proud of them. I'm so excited for them because for internal combustion, they really revived themselves after COVID. There was a new organizational structure, a new focus, and that was really brought about by Wesley Goodwin and some others who I haven't mentioned.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, just calling out Wesley because he was our previous team captain. But they came back. They went 25th to 9th to 2nd.
Yeah, which is an amazing growth piece.
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
I've been able to see that over the course of the team.
Absolutely.
But yeah, as you said, you've switched over to EV. So how have you been able to help in your role as marketing for the team? You said you were able to help it grow from the ground up. So what are some plans you have for that and some of the outreach events that you guys coordinate?
So as far as events, we just this past weekend were able to go to the Charlotte Auto Show for 4 days and interact with the local community, show them what Formula SAE is all about, introduce them to our car. I think my favorite part about it was seeing 12-year-old kids. I forget how young this kid was, but he was really young, and see their eyes light up and see that passion get ignited.
Yeah.
For some people, it's when they see the movie Cars for the first time. But my hope is that for some people, it'll be when they saw our car for the first time. There was some kids where I thought to myself, okay, that kid's in second grade, but he's going to be an engineer one day. And he's going to go to this university. He's going to have a career in motorsports. There was another kid who I could already see it. He's going to be the next Max Verstappen. Just the amount of focus, passion that they didn't get from seeing the Corvettes or the Ferraris because they were able to touch this. And we were able to show them, look, can you feel this texture? This is carbon fiber. This is what carbon fiber is. Show them, look, here, you can get in this car. Do you want to practice an egress? And just it was so much more interactive, and that really brought me a lot of joy. Other events that we were able to go to recently was the Niner Nation Uptown Celebration. This is where we were able to network and interact with a lot of Bank of America employees and celebrate the success that Charlotte has had in the recent years. And we still have a lot more on the horizon. Events come up, and I don't have anything on the schedule as of right now because we're about to go into a very intensive manufacturing phase. But as far as marketing and outreach, most of my team is comprised of freshmen. And so it's really incredible to watch them grow and develop just from the beginning of the semester, seeing how they were handling homework and just getting introduced into the college experience to now where they're looking towards finals and they're looking towards next semester and they have a different focus. And so now that they've really gotten introduced to what Formula SAE is all about, I think next semester we're going to hit a lot harder on the social media side of things. I'm not the sponsorship, and it's not called the sponsorship lead. It's called the logistics and finance lead. That's Owen Elrod. So he's in charge of that side of things, and he has three team members. And I know he's going to be working very hard next semester as well to make sure that we have enough money to go to competition. It's looking really good so far.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I'm really happy that you guys are able to be that spark that ignites kids to be able to be inspired into racing. And Charlotte overall has a great motorsports program because we have the concentration for mechanical engineers. And we've been really competitive over the years. But speaking of which, I kind of wanted to touch on something off track, which is kind of the story of how we encountered each other freshman year, because I think that's kind of relevant along these lines. So do you want to talk a bit more about that? We were literally on the bus freshman year. I see her, and then all of a sudden she told me.
I'm just like, Evan? Because we went to elementary school together, and I saw you on the bus, and I thought you looked really familiar. And you were sitting with my friend and, boyfriend actually, Jake, who was your roommate. And all of a sudden, it's like just this huge reconnection that was totally unexpected.
But what I find crazy about this is we haven't, this is when we were 18 or so.
Yes.
We hadn't seen each other since we were 5 because I changed elementary schools.
Yeah.
So I thought that was insane.
Yes.
Because I'm really good at remembering faces and names, but that was like 13 years.
It was wild. I don't know how I remembered you, but I did, and we reconnected. So
I thought that was very interesting. And also one of the cool things I think about the university is that we get a lot of people who come from in-state, so you're able to have those connections through elementary, middle, high school sometimes, or just people that you've known from around the area. And that's how I've been able to reconnect with some people. But I've always thought that was a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But at the same time, there are people who come from out of state and, they don't know anyone from their high school. Yeah. Something that I found is that it's extremely easy to find your tribe. Like I've mentioned, my boyfriend Jake, he came from Massachusetts, and he did not know anybody coming down here. But he knew he loved NASCAR. He knew he loved racing. And so he found other people who liked that. And now he has a ton of friends. He has a great support system. He's never alone in any of his journeys. And that's really what I think makes Charlotte so special, is that you can have these tight groups of people in such a large school, and you really never feel lost or alone.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think I really appreciate about the on-campus organizations. It's a lot of people who get attached to an interest, and then they're really driven to be passionate about that, work on it, whether it's archery or robotics or whatever. The point is they're able to work together towards a thing and unite around that, no matter where they were from originally. Like they get to work together as a team and do cool things. So kind of focusing more so on the team. So you guys also have a thing called Hendrick FSAE Night, right? Where you're able to, I think, practice your presentation skills or something along those lines is what I've been told.
Yeah. So basically it's for the SAE Carolina section. So UNC Asheville, NC State, both the EV, IC. I actually haven't gone to this event, but all of the universities who have FSAE teams, which in Europe is called Formula Student. So if you're looking to go to school abroad or you're looking for more Formula SAE content, also search for Formula Student. But all of those teams gather at Hendrick Motorsports, and we're able to give presentations on our designs. And it's a really great opportunity to network with the Hendrick Motorsports professionals because they are one of the top teams in motorsports, period. from NASCAR to the Garage 56 project, they're incredible. It's a dream job for a lot of people, and so it's very special to be able to be there and get your foot in the door.
Yeah. I think it's a great company for sure. And they're able to accomplish a lot of great feats.
Yes.
Overall, do you think that there's any moments in racing that have stood out to you that kind of like shaped your view on stuff, like any cool events or the clips that people can look up?
So I think the top thing just in recent news has to be Garage 56 that I just mentioned. Basically, Hendrick Motorsports came up with the idea of what if we took Hendrick Motorsports and John Doonan, who's the president of IMSA, came up with the idea, what if we took a NASCAR-style stock car to Le Mans? If you're not familiar with Le Mans, it is under the World Endurance Championship, and it is a 24-hour endurance race. And so, in partnership, Hendrick Motorsports built a NASCAR-style stock car. It's just compared with these other cars at Le Mans, it is just like a giant. There's this amazing photo of the field, and then above everyone is the Garage 56 car. And they did it. And the car finished. It still goes around and makes appearances to this day. I was able to see it at Charlotte Motor Speedway, make a lap. And it's an incredible feat of engineering and that creativity, showing people, there are a lot of misconceptions about NASCAR, but showing people what NASCAR really can be. And so that's something that I think is my favorite part of racing, is that it is the forefront of innovation. The thought process is that if we can make this technology work at its absolute limit and then engineer it down, we can make it safe for the road. And so a lot of the technology that you see in modern cars, the place it was first was race cars. And I think that's awesome.
That's fantastic and truly amazing. Mm-hmm. Are there any goals you think you want to have over the course of your years in the team, or anything that you want to accomplish either for this year's car or by your time that you graduate?
So by the time I graduate, which I graduate in exactly a year, for EV, I really want to have an established brand and online presence. That's very important to me. I think that business in Formula SAE is one of the most challenging things that you can do. I dare say it is more challenging than working for a NASCAR team or Formula One team as far as digital media, because we race once a year at competition, which, by the way, this isn't a wheel-to-wheel race. All of the dynamic events are there to prove the quality of the design. There are also static events where our engineers are absolutely grilled by judges on why they made each engineering decision. So this isn't televised. It's not wheel-to-wheel. You can't see it unless you're there, really. And through all of that, we need to find a way to provide return on sponsorships. So Formula One teams and NASCAR teams and IndyCar teams and every other motorsport have the advantage of they're able to put the sticker on their car, and you can place a dollar value on that sticker because you're going to get this many views through social media as well as TV. So it's a lot easier to provide return. There are also more activations that you can do to provide return for sponsors, more sponsored media. However, with Formula SAE, it's a lot harder. So social media plays an absolutely critical role in providing return on sponsorship. And following and engagement and reach is something that sponsors really look for. And so that's really what I'm looking to develop in the next year. And a lot of incoming freshmen and just college students in general are extremely familiar with social media. So it's really a space where students can dive in and get involved immediately. And I love that.
Yeah, and I think you guys have been doing a great job because I've seen some of the improvements in just the marketing and business side alone of both teams over the last few years. So that's been very impressive.
Yeah.
Overall, do you think that you have any advice for anyone, just people who just who are willing to check out this sport in general, get more involved within Charlotte? Basically, what do you want people to take away from this conversation? Any advice, any points, any key things that they should do to be more involved in racing, care about it, things along those lines?
I think first is that you have to pay attention to the sport if you want a career in it. if you don't know the recent news of what a team's been going through, their latest achievements or struggles, when you sit down in an interview, it's going to be an awkward conversation. So you have to pay attention to the actual races. If here in Charlotte, if you want a career in motorsports, the easiest place to go is NASCAR. So if that's not your end goal, it's really
A good starting point.
a good starting point. Exactly. So even if you're a Formula One fan, you should probably start watching NASCAR if you want a career in motorsports.
Yeah.
Mainly, you can't, I mean, it sounds so cheesy to say don't give up, but you have to be intentional with your time. You have to be persistent. There are times where I've felt like I'm never going to be able to do this. And I've had to have my inner circle remind me, look at everything you've achieved. Look at everything you've been able to do. You were able to do things that you don't know anyone else who was able to do this. You're the only one. And that's where you just have to pull yourself back up and remember what you're working for. For me, I love marketing, but the subject matter matters. I wouldn't be happy marketing something that I didn't love and that I wasn't passionate about. I want to love my job. I want to love what I do every day. And that's why I work so hard to work in motorsports. So you have to find your community. You have to find that inner circle that's going to fight for you, that's going to help connect you, that's going to remind you who you are when you need to be reminded of that. And you have to be intentional. If it comes to where you're living in South Village and going to the Kowicki lab is too much of a trek for you, then at the end of the day, that's going to be the thing that kept you from working in the industry. So you have to make those decisions of where are you going to allocate your time to achieve your goals.
Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it. It's how much are you willing to give? And I think a lot of people get bogged down by the impossibility of things rather than viewing it as there are those who came before who have done it, and there's also those who haven't done it at all. And being able to forge your own path, stick to what you believe in, and like try, I think is such a huge thing to me. And I like that you touched on that as well, because you have to be persistent. You have to be willing to go push your limit.
Yeah. And really, I think in college, you have to pick your hard. Everything's hard.
Yeah.
School's hard. Networking is hard.
Yeah.
Work is hard. Like if you're going to community college and working to support yourself, that's hard. Everything's hard. You have to pick your hard. You know what I mean? You have to decide what's worth your time. You have to decide, here are all the things. Nothing's going to be easy. Nothing worth doing is going to be easy. But what's going to make me happiest, what's going to be most fulfilling, what's going to help me get to where I want to be. Because, like I said, I got into racing in high school and late in high school too, like end of my sophomore year. And here I am. I've worked for Women in Motorsports North America. I was a volunteer at Stuart Haas Racing, meeting people who I used to only see on TV. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, earlier in October, I was at the Charlotte Roval, and I was walking around the track, walking around the pits, and I ran into someone who worked for the Aston Martin social media team who I'd been following for years on Instagram because I was inspired by her career path. She had my dream job. And it was just this like starstruck moment where she said, like, do you want to meet the driver I'm with? And I said, well, actually, I'm more interested in meeting you. So, and all of that happened because I was persistent and being persistent early.
I agree with that. And I think the great part about it is just choosing when to start because it doesn't matter when. Thank you. So that is all the time we have for today. So thank you again, Nicole, for your speed skills, business skills, and everything else. So be sure to tune in for episode 4 and follow @CurrentCLT and @the.Nazareth for updates on the podcast. So episodes will be releasing weekly on Wednesday. We may have 1 or 2 episodes left for the remainder of this year, but then we'll start up again in the spring, and those will be released weekly on Wednesdays again. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned, and go Niners.
Go Niners.